Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Man's World Podcast, where we dive deep into modern masculinity and the ever evolving dynamics between men and women. I'm your host, Micaiah Tony, and today we have got another very good episode lined up for you, and that is vetting your partner. And should you consider marrying a revert or convert religiously? So, we'll discuss the importance of compatibility and shared values and dive right into it. So, Jaffer, would you like to begin?
Yeah, I'm gonna defer to Hussein first because he has some good advice, and I'm just gonna kind of follow him up what he after he mentions what he has to mention.
All right, I appreciate that. So I believe that the first thing that you should be looking for when vetting a potential partner or considering, if she's a revert or a convert, whatever word you want to use, is going to be the relationship with the parents. The relationship with the parents is going to be key here. That's going to tell you a lot of information without going into so much detail. Just on the surface is going to give you a lot of information. And obviously, the rest of her family, what are the relationships with the rest of her families, like her siblings, her cousins, her uncles and stuff like this. And also her spiritual background. Like where does she come from? What type of spiritual background did she initially come from? Sometimes, or a lot of times, the person is, Christian. They come from a Christian background. Was their mother and father really tight with their Christianity? Did they kind of, what I'm saying, were they strict with certain things, or were they one of those loose Christians that just, oh, I'm a Christian, but they don't really follow any tenets or any principles or hold any level of morality? They will be probably one of those type of Sunday people. They just go to church on Sunday and then they just claim that they're super spiritual or something like this. So I think these things are very, very important when looking for or vetting a potential spouse.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll just to add on to that, and it's very this part right here, and a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about in these episodes coming up to this is like the key part right here, right? Because getting into something right here, we're talking about vetting a partner, right? What are you going to do? How are you going to vet them? What are you going to look for? It's key because all the stuff we're going to talk about after this, whether it's marital issues, how to fix certain things, roles in a marriage, and these sorts of things, all that is contingent on like how the partner you actually select. Right. So if you pick a bad partner, then you're going to be dealing with different things in a marriage than if you pick a good partner. Right. So it starts right there. So people have to look at this and really recognize how important this part of being in a relationship is actually choosing correctly, doing everything you can to choose as best as you can. Right. And unfortunately, especially when we're young, we don't think along these lines. Right. We get caught up into our emotions, whether someone is pretty, handsome, whatever, and we don't go through the things that we should go through. And people should look at this because this is potentially one of the most, not potentially, is one of, if not the most important decision in your life, right? This is the person that you're potentially going to have children with. This is a person that you're going to spend most of your time with after this point, right? So you really have to look at it like if you're a person that works in any capacity to like hire individuals, you conduct job interviews, right?
Right.
You have them turn in resumes and job applications. You check their references. You scrutinize the things that they're saying, right? You don't take everything they're saying as fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just think about it as, for instance, if you're going to go get surgery, right? Heart surgery, brain surgery, something that's really like your life or death depends on it. You're going to actually go through and look at the potential surgeons like, okay, what's your experience? What's your success rate? Who do you have any references? You're going to do all these things because it's a very important decision.
You're going to take it serious. You're going to take it very, very serious. So
Exactly. And it really boils down to that because especially from the male side, and because we're speaking mainly to men, but females deal with this too, but especially from the male side, this decision could ruin your life if you make the wrong decision, right? Ruin, like, decades of your life could be just wasted because you made the wrong decision, or you didn't do your due diligence to make the correct decision. And don't get me wrong, you could put all this work in and still someone could fool you. Someone can get past your checks and balances, right? It happens, but you have to reduce that risk as much as possible. And as Hussein said, like, one, you want them to submit something. You want, whether it's a resume on paper or whether it's a verbal resume, you want to go down through those checklists of stuff that you need to know. You need to know their background, right? You need to know their relationship history if they do have one. If they don't have one, you want to look at, like, well, what examples do they have? Do they base their idea of relationships off of movies and TV shows? Or do they actually have, like, good or bad examples in their life to say, okay, I want to do that. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Right.
And when we're talking about the relationship with the parents or the family members, we're talking about that chain, that chain of command or respect or authority. You know what I'm saying? Not just, oh, I have a relationship. Oh yeah, I talk to my dad, blah, blah, blah. Do you respect your dad? Do you, is he a respectable man? You feel what I'm saying? Do you seek his guidance and his counsel? Stuff like this. You feel what I'm saying? Oh yeah, I talk to my mother, but I don't really. I mean, these things are very, very important. What is, can your mother provide you some advice? Can she coach you up? Does she have some experience to where positive experience to where you can look at as a reference point? You know what I'm saying? Do you have brothers and sisters that's been married? Are they in successful situations? So it goes a little deeper than just, relationship, or, I used to be a Christian, or I used to be an atheist. Now I'm over here, it's like, no, we need to, just a little bit more. And I know it gets a little delicate because, once again, we're trying to address young people a lot because we want to make sure that they're not making these crucial, critical mistakes. But we also have to take into account the mindset of a young person. We were all young. You're not thinking about these things. Your mind can't even go there. So you need, it's basically, we're in a very interesting and unique position. The reason why is because we're not over the hedge just yet. Like, so when we were younger, we didn't have anyone. It was just either our peers or, our fathers or our mothers, maybe they 50 and 60 years old. We're all in our 40s right now. So we're straddling right in the middle to where we have fresh information, we can communicate, and we're currently going through these situations, so
and even touching on, like, so the one part about marrying like a revert. So for our non-Muslim listeners, like, a revert or a convert is someone who's recently converted to Islam. We've talked about, the importance of being on the same mental wavelength, spirituality, and all these different things of, when you're actually selecting a partner. And a constant thing that, especially living in the West, that people that may have been born and raised Muslim or Muslim for decades, the majority of their life, they'll run into situations where, maybe a potential spouse for them is a revert. And speaking from the male perspective, because, this is the male's world, if you are a person that, if you are a revert or a convert, or not, or if someone's been Muslim your whole life, you have to know what you're getting into when you're marrying someone who's a revert or convert, because especially living in this westernized non-Muslim society, there's a lot of things that are instilled in us that we think are normal or are okay, that are not okay. Like, not, and this is even before we even get into like relationship type stuff. Right. There's just certain things that, like, going through school or whatever, we're like, oh, that's okay. Like, that's normal in a relationship, or that's normal behavior, when it's actually not, and it's not cool Islamically. And you have to be prepared that this person is going to be learning as they go. Right. It's pretty much like, if we bring it to a sports analogy for our male listeners that, know sports, you're pretty much picking up someone straight out of high school to play in the NBA. Right. They only got a little bit of experience. No one's been on their level. They've been better than everybody else. And now they're in the big leagues. Right. And so not only are they learning, you have enough stress with learning how to be in a relationship. Right. You could be someone, okay, say it's polygyny, right? You're someone who's experienced in a relationship, or you could be new to the relationship already. That's already a dynamic and issues you have to deal with being in just a new relationship with somebody. But then you add on, like, okay, now you actually have to learn your deen too and how to think as a Muslim, because you literally have to rewire how you think, right? For instance, a revert, right? Feminine or male and female interactions are different for non-Muslims, right?
Yeah.
It's okay for non-Muslims to have female or male friends that aren't their family members, right? And especially like in our African American community, we do this thing where we say people are family because like maybe you grew up together, or maybe like their parent was friends with your parents. You start calling them uncle, cousins, this and that, and you're not related at all. But you might not have any type of sexual attraction towards each other. You just literally like you think of each other as brother or sister. But when you see each other, like you're all chummy, you're chatting, you text, you talk. For non-Muslims, this is like all okay.
Right.
For Muslims, this is not okay. And I would even say in non-Muslims, if you're listening, you should not be okay with this either, because you've seen a lot of stuff out there where they ask the question, can guys and girls be friends? And the simple answer to that is absolutely not. You can't, right? So there's different things like this where if you're getting into a relationship with someone who's a revert, that you have to consider, like, okay, I have to like, are they ready to reframe their thinking? Are they ready to change their paradigm? Because you will deal with these issues. You will run into issues where your wife or your husband is doing something that from your Muslim perspective, you're like, yo, this is totally wrong.
Right.
But they don't see it as wrong. This is like, I've been doing this for years. And, you know, and you have to address, you have to be prepared to run into those types of situations.
And that's a very interesting point you bring up, because the man, let's say the woman has already been Muslim and the man is the convert. That dynamic gets a bit dicey, because then he's in a position of leadership over her. So how does she communicate and instruct him or help him or guide him when he's making these mistakes? He might have been a guy come from the streets, or maybe he's, you know, he's still following his rap career. He just converted over to be a Muslim, but he wants to be a rapper and wants to hang out in these crowds and go to the club. And the woman, she, you know, she's a traditional, you know what I'm saying, Muslim lady, and she's trying to figure out how she can communicate that to her spouse to get them to kind of get on track. So those type of dynamics versus the other way around, where it's a young lady or female convert, and then the man, he's already in that position of authority and he's trying to talk to her. So there's two different, dynamics going on there. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, and you'll see so many different examples as far as like, marrying revert marriages, we'll say, or convert marriages. And the one situation you mentioned where like the guy's the revert.
Yeah.
And the lady's been the Muslim for all her life and she knows more about Islam. You'll see a lot in those situations where the lady is used to being the authority, right? And the husband's going to her like, okay, well, how do I do this Islamically? How do I do this? Well, how do I pray? And she's into it like a teacher leadership position. And then sometimes there's a situation where now the husband finally gets up to speed and he starts actually knowing a little bit more, getting his knowledge up, and then realizing his role as a husband. And now he starts actually trying to become the authority, and now they butt heads. Yeah. Because she was used to being the leader, used to being the authority, used to being able to say, no, Islam says this, do this or do that. And then
I've seen this play out quite a few times, you know what I'm saying? And them situations get rough, they get rough. It's not like it's just a deal breaker and they can't recover. I've seen a couple that did survive the test of time, but for the most part, it gets really interesting because the woman, like you said, she's in that position. And it's hard for her to then come down as the man excels up and he's starting to do his thing. He's starting to, take his religion serious and all this stuff. She's still trying to hold on to that little power or something. It gets weird. So, and
you see the same thing on the opposite end where a Muslim guy, and this often happens too many times, where when we call him Shahada Jones, right? He got himself a Shahada Jones. Like basically, like he found some girl on the street. He met her because he wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing. met her in a club or on a street while, and and then they fell for each other, decided to, make it right and get married. But their relationship was established on behavior that they're not supposed to be doing as Muslims. Right. And I've seen so many times, okay, the sister takes her shahada, becomes Muslim, and then all of a sudden she starts like, well, no, we can't do this stuff anymore. But the reason he liked her was because of the haram stuff or the forbidden stuff that they were engaged in, whether it was dancing, smoking, drugs, whatever. And I was like, I don't do that anymore. And then the relationship fails because it's a new dynamic. So I'm just saying that's like when you're going into a relationship with a revert. I know this is not all about reverts and marrying reverts. You have to know what you're getting into. But really back to like the importance of like vetting is that there's in Islam, again, I encourage everybody to become Muslim. Like we are Muslim. So a lot of our perspective is going to come from Islam. We have it very easy if we wanted to, because we have the playbook right in front of us. It's all laid out. It's very important to connect with the people that are close to the potential spouse, right? We have hadiths and sayings that basically give that teach us that if we want to know about somebody, we go and look at their friends, or we go and look at their close companions and family members to like learn about that person. Okay? Because a person they're going to take for friends people that they like, whether they like their speech, they like their actions, they like their way of thinking, and this will give you a glimpse into the way that this person thinks, the way that this person behaves, what they're into, right? If you're looking for a potential spouse, you meet a lady and you somehow like know her friends, and you see that all her friends are like these ghetto ratchet, they're out in the streets doing all types of stuff, that should be a red flag. It doesn't necessarily mean that this person is like, maybe you found like, the cream of the crop out of that friend group, but most likely that person is into the same exact things that their friends are into. So again, like it's very important to go through this like mental checklist, this mental application, right? Go through it, check with their references. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I need you to because let's be honest, when you get hey, I need a reference, they're going to get somebody they know is going to say something good about them, right? You need to have conversations with real people and look at like Hussein mentioned, like what's the relationship with their parents? You'll see a lot of people, and especially for guys, when you're looking at women to get married, if you can tell a lot simply, and I know Mark's will touch on this more when he signs in, simply by looking at the relationship with their father and their mother. You could look at those two things, and if you dive deep into that, right? If you have like a whole 2-hour conversation about that person's relationship with their father and their mother, you could learn almost everything you need to know about the person. So it's very important, and I can't stress enough that like this is some things that we really have to place importance on. If you guys are single out there, young men that are looking to get married eventually, even men that are looking into getting into polygyny, you have to put all your emphasis on this aspect as far as vetting your partner. You have to do it. You have to.
Real quick question. Quick update. Of course, if anyone wants to come in and have some live dialogue with us, you all are welcome to do so. If y'all have questions, please submit the questions. We are open to this. This is actually what we would prefer, to answer anyone's questions live, or if someone has information that they might want to share, or even a different perspective. We are open to all of these things. So just wanted to say that. Because like Jaffer said, this is a very, very important topic. And once again, we're kind of where we are right now. We're hoping that we can do the best job that we can for even our children, because we all have children, and it's going to be the same situation. All of them are going to go through the same process, and we're just trying to jump out in front of it and put this information out there to where it's a resource for them to be able to access the information. And even, bounce some situations off, because everyone's going to have their own set of situations, scenarios, and stuff like that. But just to have this overall, information that we can place out here for everyone, I think it's super important. And we're just trying to do the best that we can and share our experiences, because we have a lot of experiences, and also we're currently going through our own experience, live to date. You know what I mean? So yeah. Want to say
And
that.
for those who have already been in like relationships, maybe failed relationships, that right there is your biggest indicator to kind of let you know, like, okay, what should I be looking for now? So what you're going to do is look at your previous relationship and identify the things in your past partner that probably assisted in making the relationship fail. Not saying it's all their fault, but what things didn't work with you, right? Identify those things. And if you were in that relationship, you now know more about them. You know about their family history, you know about their personality, different things. And now what you do is you basically reverse engineer it. What things do I know about that person that would have told me that she possessed this trait or quality, right? So you basically, okay, this person is like, let's just say a simple example. This person is not clean and tidy. And that's like a red flag for you, right? You have to live in a clean and tidy house.
Right.
Okay. And you, in that relationship, you're with that person, you reckon like, this person just dirty. Why didn't I identify that beforehand? Okay. Now look back and say, you know what? When I did visit her house to have our sit down, engagement dinner or whatever, I noticed that like the bathroom was pretty messy, right? I noticed that like after we had our dinner, like nobody cleaned off the table. Like these are just silly examples. Well, basically you start looking for those red flags. And now when you go to sit down or meet or engage with your future partner, these may be questions or things that you look for before you get into it. Like, okay, we had dinner, she cleaned up, right? Or I went to the house and it was all neat and tidy. It didn't look like, oh, they just cleaned up for this occasion, right? Then you'll be able to identify those things. But again, going back to like looking at the relationships they have with the important male figures in their life, whether it's fathers, brothers, mothers, like in the female relationships, looking at those will give you about like the majority of all the information you need to see how your relationship will be with that same person.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like this as well. And I try to teach my children this. We're all going to make mistakes, but we have to be able to classify and identify the levels of mistakes. Like there's certain mistakes in life that you're only going to get one chance to make. You're going to make it. This mistake, you can't undo it. You understand what I'm saying? So, okay, if you make a little small mistake over here, but no, if you're talking about life-altering mistakes, you have to take them serious, because there's no takesies backsies. You feel what I'm saying? You can't take that back if you make this mistake. So putting emphasis on making those critical, huge mistakes, and we all know about these things, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So, for example, I tell my son, he's 20 years old, and he's getting into that space where, he's, coming of age, coming around. And I'm explaining to him the significance, and I'm just going to just stay on the surface. I tell him about his credit, you know what I mean? So when I was 20 years old, I just, I put stuff in my mother's name or my sister's name, and just, all these different things I was doing. I explained this to him. You cannot make those mistakes. You cannot make those mistakes. Now, of course, you can come back from it, but it's going to be years down the line after, your credit is messed all up and you go to apply for something. You don't know why you're getting denied. Then it pulls up that, your sister got, some phones in your name. She just kindly asked you for your social security number. You gave it to her, and you didn't know the significance of that mistake, which is going to cost you years to undo. So just something like that, you know what I mean? We want to try to help the younger people and even ourselves to identify the levels and the severities of the certain mistakes or decisions we're going to make that would be an actual mistake because we didn't do the proper vetting, on the other side. So,
and when you're in this process of vetting somebody, it's not to say that, okay, if you encounter a red flag, like it's the end of the world. No, it means like you should investigate that further, right?
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of people that maybe like for classic red flag that you're going to be looking for. you're gonna be looking for your partner and say, okay, did this person grow up in a 2-parent household? Okay, that's something you should definitely be asking your potential spouse, or looking for in your potential spouse. Did this person grow up in a 2-person household? Now, that a lot of times, especially in society we live in, that may not be like the biological parents. It may be most likely the mother, right? And maybe a stepfather. But if they grew up in a 2-person household, that's actually a very good sign that they actually got to see a relationship in action. But then you also want to investigate, well, what type of relationship was that?
Right.
Was the father abusive? Was the mother abusive? Like, what was it toxic? What is a toxic relationship? But you want to investigate these things. But like, for instance, red flag. You say, oh, hey, did you did you grow up in a 2-parent household? Oh no, I grew up a single mother. Never, my father was never around. No father figure ever around. That was it. Okay, that's a red flag. That doesn't mean that like it's done and over for that person. Now you got to investigate and maybe like, well, what did you learn out of that situation? Like, what's your perspective on relationships? Where do you get your examples from as far as like what's a successful relationship? Who do you go to for advice? Because you necessarily can't go to your mother because your mother doesn't have the experience to give you actually advice on. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. But who are your, like, these are the follow-up questions to see, okay, is this person, if this person's like, oh, when you start asking follow-up questions and you start seeing that, okay, this person hasn't learned anything from their experiences, right? And the mindset that she's developed is the mindset of someone who is single and I got to do it on my own. And I'm not, I don't value relationships. I don't value my husband and these sorts of things. Then maybe you steer away from it. But I was just saying, give an example of just because a red flag pops up, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world, because there are plenty of people who have come up in bad situations, red flags all around, but they actually learn from those red flags and learn from those experiences, be like, you know what? I'm going to do this differently, right? Just like, for instance, the classic one, and this is another red flag that you want to look for. And, say if the person grew up in like an abusive situation where like one of their parents was abusing them, beating them or whatever, right? Or even, sexually abusing them. That's a red flag, because we know from abuse, if you were abused, it's a higher chance that you may abuse somebody else, right? However, it's also possible that person was like, no, I suffered abuse. I'm going to make sure that I do not, I break the chain, I break the cycle, and I'm not going to continue that abuse on my children, my husband, yada, yada, yada. So again, just follow up those red flags with additional questions. You have to scrutinize the individual. Scrutiny. Well, don't be the person that's going through this vetting process and be like, how do you feel about respecting the husband? And she, oh, I respect my husband and I'm this and that, and I'm so obedient and I'm such a this and that. You're just taking their word for it. Then as soon as you get married, and the first thing that's happened is that she's cussing you out, calling you all outside of your name and all these different things. You have to scrutinize what these people are saying, because again, just think about yourself going to a job interview, right? You go to a job interview and they start asking you questions. You start just saying anything positive that's going to, like, what they want to hear. Right. Oh, yeah, I work hard. I'm never going to take a day off. I don't take vacations. I don't do that. Dang well, as soon as you get in there and get past probation, you're like, I'm taking a day off. I'm calling in sick. I'm coming in. Like, this is reality.
That's a good analogy. Great analogy. Now, I didn't mean to cut you out. It was just.
No, you're good. You're good. That's all I got.
Well, I just want to say thank you, brothers, for opening up the discussion with so much wisdom and very, very important considerations. I just want to touch on the other half, or go back to the other half of our topic for today's episode, being like, should you consider a revert or a convert? I think we can all agree that there are some unique challenges or unique dynamics that come into play when entering a relationship with someone who has embraced a new faith that you may already be used to. So I just want you guys' opinion on what long-term considerations should couples keep in mind when one partner is a convert or revert.
So from the male's perspective, and I mean it should be from both perspectives, but the long-term goal is paradise, right?
Right.
We want to be in a relationships that we help each other get closer to Allah, to God, and staying away from sin, and ultimately avoiding hellfire and making it to paradise. And that's going to be a different look for every single person. So, in short, you want the long-term goal is this person going to help me and my children become better Muslims? That's
Mm-hmm.
the long-term goal.
Mm-hmm.
As far as everything else, like, as far as our paradigm, as far as like what we believe and our worldview, everything else is going to come or go no matter what, right?
Yeah, there's going to be no shortage of struggles. There's going to be no shortage of adversity.
Yeah.
The more we come to terms with this reality, the better we can equip ourselves for the long journey, like Jaffer said, because ultimately we're bringing, we want to come together, create a union. We want to bring children up, bring children into the world. We want to teach them, instruct them, and educate them in hopes that these children will be better than we were,
Yeah.
we ever were, and we're going to put everything into them, but the end goal is still the same. We want to achieve some measure of success in this life, i.e., having a successful, comfortable marriage. We know there's going to be some struggles, but we also want to keep our eyes on the prize, which is the end goal. Are we in God's favor when we make that transition? We're all going to make the transition. Two, working together is better than one, what I'm saying, on the journey. And of course, if you have upright, righteous children that, God has blessed you with, they can also assist and help you on your journey. They can also be a reminder, So, yeah, I agree 100%. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Can you hear us, Mubarak? Oh, like his mic's not working. We can't hear you. But just to add on to that, and also just for like that's like the ultimate goal, but also as far as like long-term goals or even short-term goals is worldly stuff. There's something in Islam that we make dua for and we're taught to make prayers for and ask for, and it's the Arabic term is al afia, and the best way to explain that is peace and tranquility, right? And this is something that both partners, both spouses should be aspiring for, is that they want peace, tranquility, serenity in their lives. That's what they should be aiming for, right? Not fighting, arguing all the time. It should be direct. Everything should be directed at as we both want to achieve peace. Okay, so that's like a worldly thing that we should be aspiring for in our relationships. When you're marrying a revert or not marrying a revert, that's, in my opinion, what we should be striving for in a relationship.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's very good. My next question, well, you kind of touched on it, but yeah, just to ask it, how can couples address and then rise above their potential cultural or religious background differences? Should they, both want to move forward together and be together?
Yeah, so one of the things that we have to do, and it's a challenge for all of us Muslims that have been born and raised in this Western modern society, is that we have to rewire how we think. Okay, we have to adopt an Islamic perspective. That's our culture, right? Yes, we have other things, culturals, like as far as like how we dress, the type of clothes we wear, like that. But that stuff really doesn't matter Islamically, right?
Mm-hmm.
What should happen is the way we think, the values we have, that's really our culture. And that should be determined by Islam. And we should rewire ourselves for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you, Jaffer.
Trying to get Mubarak in here. Something's going on with the mic.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, if anyone has any questions, you have any more questions?
Just to piggyback off what Jaffer said, I do think it's important, not that I am a born Muslim, but I do think it's very important to rewire, like you said, when you are a born Muslim, to understand that, you know, the person just didn't or wasn't raised with the values that you have. And so there's, you know, some form of mercy or grace that you should want to lend them in order to even represent Islam well, you know. So I think that's very important because, especially if you're the husband, especially if you're the imam of the household, you know, you are a representation of Islam. You are supposed to show the people that follow you, whether they're convert, revert, born, you know, what embodying Islam looks like, what, you know, following Quran and Sunnah actually looks like. Or, you know, or else when we don't, we give a false impression, or, you know, we make the mistake of pushing someone away because they have, you know, this type of example. So yeah, I appreciate you touching on that, Jaffer.
And a lot of times what happens in those types of relationships is and it happens on both ends, especially with reverts, is that, well, on both ends, but a lot of people bring in their own version of Islam, right? Where they have a certain perspective of Islam, and it may be, especially living in West, again, you have certain imams, YouTube videos, or different things that are pushing a version of Islam that actually isn't authentic Islam. It's more this modernist type of version of Islam, especially like these, I call them simp imams, where they're preaching like, oh yeah, the wife doesn't have to do anything. She has no responsibility. She doesn't have to cook. She doesn't have to clean. And really, they're just catering to a female audience, and they're using Islamic ideas that goes against hundreds and thousands, hundreds of years of Islamic tradition. And then people come into those relations like, well, this is what the imam told me, and I took my shahada based off of this. And it's like, well, no, this is really what Islam is. And that goes both ways. So like, as the leader of the household, the man has to take his leadership role, and that's something he should consider when marrying a revert. Because if a man is marrying a revert, now you're also taking on the responsibility of like, okay, I have to make sure she's educated and learning. That doesn't take away her responsibility of, you also have to be self-motivated to learn this stuff too, because we're all adults. Like I have to teach my children and our children and all this. I'm going to try to teach you as much as I can as well. But that's, a man has to look at, like, do I have the energy and capacity to now teach another person, right? And this adds another dynamic, because when the man takes this role of being the teacher and educator and all that, it's the same as what he would do with his children. Sometimes it creates animosity, because the wife, especially coming from a Western background and modern background, is, no, we're equals, right? I'm the same as you. Why are you? And you'll hear this all the time. You're treating me like I'm a kid. And it's like, well, Islamically, you are kind of a kid. I'm not trying to disrespect you. I'm not trying to belittle you, but you don't have the knowledge. And when I'm teaching you, you're getting offended because you're feeling as if you're a kid, just like anybody in any new situation really feels like a kid learning something new. Like if I went into, say, Hussein's field, and it's like carpentry and painting and all these other, I'm going to feel like a kid when he's telling me certain basic things. Oh, he's telling me to hold the brush like this. Like, no, I want. But you have to eat that, because I don't have the experience. I don't know, right? So if I go into the medical field with Mubarak, same exact thing. So you got to, like, a lot of times you have to be prepared for, you're going to be the person you're trying to help and teach, and may actually work against you, because they'll look at you as, you think of them lowly or less than something, when you're actually just trying to help them. And it can create animosity in a relationship. Can we get Mubarak? Mark, what's going on with the audio?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Here we go. Sorry. There we go. Go ahead. You got the floor.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. My apologies, brothers, but I'll get right to it. On the issue of vetting a potential spouse, I'll just deal with because the most important thing is, like, I don't say it's the most important thing, but like vetting the man is it's really important. I would say actually it's a little bit more important than vetting the woman, because a lot of times, most women, they usually fall in line to some degree behind their men. It's just, doesn't matter. That's why, Muslim men are allowed to marry Christian or Jewish women under certain circumstances, because most likely we have that rule in our religion, because most likely that woman, if she has certain qualities and characteristics, she's going to fall in line behind that man, and she's going to follow him right into, hopefully eventually into Islam. At the very least, she's going to operate the way that he wants her to operate as far as his household and his children and things like that. So with that said, we'll start with the men. Now, to vet a man, and I'm going to try to go quickly because I'm late, but any ex-spouses that this man has, or current spouses, if he's already married, if a woman does not have a conversation and an interrogation, a deposition with that woman, she is playing around. She's really not serious. This is not the time to be shy or say, well, I don't know what she's going to think. Actually, it don't matter what she thinks. The baby mother, any women that you know of that you can get in contact with and speak to before you engage in a relationship of any kind, even before even talking, and having a conversation and listen to his jokes and all that, you have to talk to the women who's already engaged in a relationship with this man. And this is for the women. I've seen so many times where women will never even speak to the ex or the current wife or, the mother of his children from however many years back. You already know. And see, this is where having a representative, father figure, or wali, as we say, like someone who represents you, comes in, because that person he's not going to care nothing about people's feelings or like that. He's going to be able to say, if I need to talk to this person for you on your behalf and investigate, I'll do it. And they'll be able to do it in a way to filter out, some of the things that, of course, an ex-wife or a baby mama is not going to be like, oh, wow, he was just great and wonderful. But he's ever going to be able to establish some things that between all the noise that this woman might be saying, what tangible things and what red flags might come up, so I would think that's the number one thing. If that person has a history, it's like if you're hiring someone for a job, you say, okay, what's your work history? I mean, okay, what any gaps in your employment history or whatever. And they say this person has had, one job here, there, everywhere, but nothing stable, nothing long, nothing substantial. You're going to be skeptical at the very least. So to me, that's number one. And I think it's the number one thing that's overlooked, because almost everyone that I talk to, and I say, well, have you talked to this person before the ex, before you got with the young man or young woman? And they say, well, no, but they'll take the word of this person about, oh yeah, my ex was this, or he was that, or she was this, or she was that, the other person is going to have some information. Now, if everything that you say, or everything that the man says about his ex, you didn't talk to his ex, and his ex pretty much echoes the same things, then you say, okay, you can establish that you probably have a person who is going to be honest, and they're not going to be embarrassed or too shy about saying their weaknesses or their strengths or whatever. So
this is a very, very interesting perspective. It's not something that I even thought of. And that's one of the beauties of having multiple men with experience, or multiple people with experience, because each one is going to come with their own, and I'm saying this to say, I'm going to let you rock. I just have to, the question's in my mind now. It's like, okay, well, you're saying that a woman should go to the man's exes and try to get some information. Yeah. So typically, we can kind of assume how that might go. So a question to you: why do you think, Mubarak, women don't typically take that route? What would be your thoughts? Because I can think of a bunch of reasons why women probably wouldn't go that direction. But what do you think?
Usually, if it's the ex, they're thinking, everybody has in their mind, they think, we have this idea about ourselves that, yeah, I know I'm making the right decision, and your physical attraction and that spark, that energy that you have with the person tells you a story about them before you ever really get with them. And you don't want anything to mess up that story, that image that you have in your mind of them. and you're thinking, oh well, that ex will just be hating.
That
Yes, they will be hating probably.
that is
The
the
ex
exact
probably will be a hater, but the thing is, there's certain things about that ex or that's a perspective that he or she has about that person that no one else has except for those few people who have been in a relationship with them. And if you're going to get into a relationship with someone in the same it's like, okay, this person was fired from this job, you're about to take that exactly, or they quit that job, right? You're about to take that exact position at that exact company doing the exact same thing for the exact same pay. And you just saw this dude, he would literally, or she was working there doing the exact same thing. Why did you quit? Or how did you get fired? You know, if you had the opportunity to ask them, you would do that.
Yep.
Why we're like, well, I'm not going to ask that person. I understand. We want to think that we made the right decision, and because we're considering this person, we build it up in our mind. This person is this, that, and other, and we don't want, maybe the dirty laundry or whatever. You have to understand, exes are going to trash you. Just in general, they're usually not going to say anything good. A bad ex is going to trash you, and a good ex, usually if someone's good, they're not going to be an ex a lot of times. But maybe it was, the person who's lost the marriage, they were bad, and now they're trying to get themselves better. So their ex may be a good person, but they fumbled the bag. And so if that is the case, it's only going to be a benefit. But you have to go into it when you say, if I'm going to call someone's ex, I already know they're not going to have anything good to say, but I'm listening for certain things that are, going to throw me off, right? So if they say, I say, well, what was about him? Now, if they say, oh, you know what? He was so strict. He was he was strict with his money, or he really he didn't let the kids watch certain shows because he was like an extremist Islamic or whatever. Like, exes might say stuff like this in their mind. They think this is but for you might be thinking, I need someone who's more strict and adherent to the religion. This is going to help me. So you can, and there's a lot more to it, but you can get a lot of good, useful information and still cut through the noise, I think, from an ex, because you can establish when this ex is really just being a hater. They really don't like this person, of course. And
It works on multiple levels, because
yeah,
if you're a guy, lady, if you're thinking about getting with a guy and he's like, don't call my ex, that's the equivalent of someone saying, don't call my previous employer. Don't deal with them, right? And a guy, no matter what, if he knows that person is going to lie about them, raid, whatever, it doesn't matter, because on multiple aspects. One, I've seen situations where contacting your ex actually clears up some falsehood. Like, you might hear, oh, he beats his wife. Then you'll see that the potential spouse contacts the ex, and the ex like, nah, he never put his hands on me, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times you could see, as for the man's aspect, if your potential spouse contacts your ex and your ex is telling lie after lie about you, and your spouse can't pick that up, you don't want to be married to that person anyway, right?
Yeah.
So you're good.
And I would say this for potential for someone who is on the other end, you're being vetted, right? You're talking to a young lady, and I said I was starting with the man first. So for men out there, if you're being vetted, and for young ladies, you're vetting a man, the thing is, you can tell the caliber of the man, or at least his honesty or his bravery, or whatever you want to call it. If he says, okay, here are the phone numbers for my ex, here, and this is the phone number for my wife. If he has more than one wife, he's married. I mean, when I got married, I think every time I gave the numbers for anybody I was previously married to or anybody I was currently married to. And you know what? The amazing thing is, they were never called. Only one time they talked to even one time they talked to some friends that were adjacent, but to actually talk to my wives and my exes, people, for whatever reason, they're afraid to do it. But I think for me, because I was like, yeah, here they go, call away. And I'll be ready to say, because I mean, if they tell a bunch of lies, I might call them and be like, hey, yo, we're telling a bunch of lies. I might, I said, get them on three-way. Go ahead, put them on. Let's hear them say this. Let me hear them say this. So it automatically, I think it puts people at a certain comfortability. Like, this man doesn't mind. I mean, if he's married, he's saying, here, call my wife and talk to her. No problem. So I think sometimes, and I don't want to say that it's lazy, but still, if the numbers are there, provided, because it might give you an insight into that man not being worried about what his exes or his current wife might say. But it also will help you. And if you talk to the wife, if he's married, or his ex, give you more idea of the type of person that he is and how, his day-to-day workings or whatever. And it might be some things that you might find that, even though he might be a good person, that you either have to mentally prepare yourself to deal with, or you have to realize that maybe this is not something that's going to work for me. Just like, certain things, like I don't let my kids just eat a bunch of junk food or whatever. I'm very like strict about that. Like, I let them get stuff from time to time, but for the most part, like, there's no soda in my house. There's no there's no Debbie's, there's no like chips and stuff on the fridge. Like,
Right.
we don't give none of that stuff. So for some people, that is something that they just love. That's part of their thing. And so for looking at that, if the ex is saying stuff like this, you might be like, nah, listen, I need my Debbie's, whatever. It's not like they're gonna be.
Let me jump in real quick. Because again, this particular aspect of the topic, this rabbit hole goes deep.
Yeah.
So of course it's going to be, it had to be another show. But I would just say, typically when anyone thinks about X, right off the bat in our minds, it's a negative connotation. Yeah. Straight up, we think that this person is an X. So we're like, okay, what did this person do wrong? Or, oh, this is only if we are looking towards the other person, you know what I'm saying, to build a relationship. That person has an X, it's automatically going to be, okay. Yeah. The reason why I'm saying this is because women and men are going to think about this differently. A woman is going to have her presupposed thoughts about that man's ex. And that's why I was asking the question initially, why do you think a woman, because you just said it, you just gave out your information, let them have the floor, and majority of them did not take that opportunity. Now, on the other side of that, would the majority of men not take that opportunity? That's a counter question.
I think it is something that a lot of people, just in general, I don't think it's common. I don't think it's common. And I think
what I'm asking is, do you think a man in that situation, let's flip it, and let's say the woman said she's giving out the multiple numbers to whoever she's like. Do you think that the majority of the men are going to take her up on that offer versus the woman who you said only did it one time?
Majority won't. Majority of men won't, because they're thinking, all right, I already got this girl. I mean, and it's like a concept. Well, first of all, it's my girl now, so I ain't worried about none of these other dudes too.
And I know best.
Yeah,
I'm gonna disagree there. I would disagree respectfully, but
because most people don't. I think most men, then I'll be like, before they talk to a girl, man, you're really nice. I think I really want to marry you. But let me talk to your ex first. No one does that.
We can do it right here. We have exes. We have exes that are in new relationships. Probably. Yeah. Did that guy contact you?
No, I'm not going to. And the thing is, and this is the thing where it's not something that a lot of people would be comfortable with. For a man, you have to be very, very, very secure and very you got to be like to talk to the ex of a woman who you are planning on and you're thinking that you're going to get in a relationship with, just psychologically, like, yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like a there's a masculinity thing there with it. Yeah. But that's why I would say, to put in a little plug, that's what we can do. That's something that we can be, that go between people. So if you're considering someone for marriage, right, man or a woman, and you really want to get into, figuring out, interviewing and talking to the exes, the ex-husband or the ex-wife, but you yourself don't want to do it, that's what we would do. That's one thing that I don't know if we get this information out there, where we talk to the exes about, this, that, and other, and come back and tell you what the ex is saying about this person that you're considering.
Once again, there's layers there too. Yeah, because if the ex is in another relationship, like you said, no man is going to go and try to reach out to another married woman. That could have been his ex, but he ain't about to do that. You know what I'm saying? And not only that, are we talking about, like I said, there's some layers there. I know we can't really get into it, but we talk about older men, younger men. Is it all the same?
Like, the bottom line is that you are not doing your due diligence if you are not reaching out to the person's ex, and you are leaving a gaping hole in vetting the person. You actually aren't really vetting them.
Yeah, I'm saying that this is something that is not common. I know I don't think it's common, but I think it is a huge information source, to where if you can take the emotion out of it, and you can know and understand that an ex is not always going to say, going to have wonderful things to say, and you can filter through that and get the information that you need, and that you can use, it would be great. So but yeah, so that's I think that's important.
Like Mark, he mentioned it quickly, but like, even if I really want people to pay attention to this part, even if the ex is going to say negative things, a lot of times those negative things are actually positives for the new person. Right? Like, also he just wanted to, he just wanted to read Quran all day, and he didn't want to go do, and like, they're actually like helping you recruit. So like, don't be afraid about the false information. Don't be afraid about the negative information. Don't be intimidated. Guys, don't be intimidated about talking to a female's ex, and that whole, like I said, this is an important decision. So you have to do all your due diligence on every single aspect to make sure that you're making a good decision.
Yeah. And so talking to the ex, of course, family and friends. Listen, family are going to, for the most part, I don't want to say they're going to lie, but they are going to, little Timmy is just great. He's wonderful. He's such a sweet. His mother will cut her right arm off if she thinks that it will help him, especially if he thinks you're a good woman and this, that, and other, or if little Timmy, ain't given her grandchildren yet, or whatever it might be. It's like, so the parents, the mother and the father, you almost can throw any information out that they tell you, for them that's not tangible, that can't be nailed down, because they're going to ride for their son. And even like me personally, I have several brothers. I tell my brothers already, and I tell people, I say, listen, either I will vouch for you and I will speak good on your behalf to whoever, or I'm not saying anything. If I can't say good about you, I'm not saying anything. So people say, well, put in a good, and sometimes my mother will say, put in a good word for your brother so and so. I won't say any names. I'm like, I'm not saying anything, because I'm only going to tell the truth. So just don't bring me up on the stand in this matter. So, but family and friends, usually, I mean, you do need
it's going to be a confirmation bias.
Yeah. And you can talk to them, but the main thing is you can ask them about their relationship and how they get along with their, like, if it's a man, how does he get along with his sisters? Is his relationship good with his sisters? Because some of that is going to translate between you. How does he get along with his mother? Some of that is going to translate. And on the flip side, with women, how do they get along with their brothers? And things like that. But another very, 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 very important thing, and people overlook it a lot, they will talk to, like, for a Muslim man, they will talk to brothers in the masjid or family members and whatever, but they overlook a very important thing. Is this person is a Muslim, they do not talk to the work friends. If he has a job, number one, you need to have a request, contacts, and information for people who he works with. If he won't give them to you, or I can't get whatever, one or two things is at foot. He either does not have a job, and where he's telling you he's working at, he don't work there. And there's several people have been duped by this, saying, "Yo, the brother said he was working in this," or I'm working in business, I'm in finance. And it's like, what is that? That could be anything. Oh, well, he didn't really say. That person doesn't have a job. This person is, selling incense or doing something random, but he doesn't have a job. So, but talking to his work friends is going to help you do two things. It's going to help you to establish that he actually has employment. You talk to, so-and-so at work, and you can ask them, okay, did you know that, okay, this brother Mubarak, okay, I'm calling about him, and you can ask like you could be any person, right? You don't necessarily have to. I'm looking to get married, but you can ask those work friends about whether did you know he was a Muslim? You'd be surprised at how many people are Muslim. They're at work. They've been working for 5, 10, 15 years with some people, and the co-workers don't know he's Muslim.
Yep.
They don't know that he's Muslim. So what does that tell you? This person, as far as Islamically, is either not representing Islam in all aspects of his life, or he's shy or weak, timid about representing Islam, whatever it might be. So this gives you an indication about this person and how adherent to Islam and how they are going to carry and enforce Islam in their lives. It's not a perfect science, but talking to those non-Muslim co-workers who then will say, yeah, that man's a Muslim, man. He won't even shake nobody. He doesn't even shake the women's hands, or he's always praying in the stairwell or whatever it might be. They're gonna give you some indication that, wow, yes, this man is representing Islam, and he's a person where publicly he's not going to be a Muslim, and then privately he's just going to be doing any old. Because
and then
even
I don't know
work,
what the statistics are. A lot of adultery, cheating, all that happens where? In the workplace.
Yeah. They might say, oh yeah, Mubarak, what? Oh yeah, him and his girlfriend work here. His girlfriend works here. Yeah. Whatever. So you definitely, if you are considering a man for marriage and you did not request or talk to any of his non-Muslim co-workers, you've done a disservice. And it's like it really is. It's an extra step. And you might think, well, look at all these steps, because the next thing I'm gonna say is, yes, you want to see that man's check stubs. You want to actually see what his earnings are. Now, I'll tell you right now, I will not share my check stubs with any woman. No one's seeing my check stubs. But I'm saying from a woman's perspective, you should request them. And if he won't let you see them, then at the very least, your wali, your father, or some male representative should be able to at least look and confirm that, okay, yes, he is married, and yes, he is making the type of money that he's saying he's making. Because this is the thing, and I know I'm going long, but this is important. We're talking about vetting the potential spouse. If you're just like my daughters, for instance, I'm going to be representing them. I know the type of lifestyle that they're used to. I know the type of amenities and the type of things that they're going to be expecting, the type of home that they're going to be expecting. And so I would need to know and establish that this person can afford her. He has to be able to afford her. So sometimes people get into a thing where they just take a bit. Oh yeah, I work at the hospital. Doing what? Well, yeah, he could be saying anything. Let me see your check stubs. Let me see your earnings. Let me see your tax return. Let me see your W-2, so that I can say, okay, yeah, this man makes 78,000 or 48,000 or 22,000, and that way I know. I say, hey, listen, Fulana, whatever, you like this person, you say you want to marry him. This is the type of lifestyle that he can provide. He's making $22,000. Now you may be happy with his character, his conduct, or whatever, but he's broke, and he's not going to be able to provide you the financially these things, and you have to be able to accept that. But when you're vetting,
he makes $20,000 and he has 4 dependents. Like, wait, you said you had no kids. What's going on?
Exactly. So these are the things that you have to do, and I guarantee you, a lot of people are not doing it. They're just taking people's word for it, or they might say, or maybe they met them at work, they saw them at work. Listen, at my job, there's people that are making millions, and there's people that's making a minimum wage, and they all are dressed exactly alike. You can't tell. I get mistaken for the janitor every day. Because, a lot of times we wear the same thing. But the thing is, maybe not every day, but it happens sometimes. But the thing is, these things you have to do if you're going to vet a man that you're going to marry. He needs to be able to provide. And if he's working some sort of job or some sort of profession where his finances are in flux, 1 month he might make 38,000, and the next month he might not make anything. This is something that you have to be ready and prepared for. You have to say, as a woman, and as the man who's representing her, and saying, listen, this is a man who's boom or bust. He makes a lot of money some months, and other months he doesn't make money. So you have to understand that that's going to average out. And sometimes, even though he may have made a lot of money in this month, he's not going to splurge and be spending all of his money, because the next 1-2 months he may not have it.
Yeah.
So as a representative, you have to get this idea in that woman's mind that you're representing, and that woman has to understand the type of financial situation she's getting into, because there is you're dealing with the person, and then also within dealing with that person and his Islam and his character and conduct, the finances is a big part of it. And for your lifestyle, if you're comfortable with the type of lifestyle that he is on paper can provide, then go forward. But don't be like, you get married to a person and you don't know nothing about their financial situation and then complain about the finances. Close your mouth. You do not have the a right to complain about the finances if you didn't do your due diligence on the front end. Yep. You just married someone without even considering or verifying the finances. So just take whatever you get. I mean, this is I know I'm going in a little bit, but the women, it's not, because they will come to you and say, oh, he's so and so, so and so, so and so. They have these things that they will say, and I do this personally, where women will come and they want to sit down and they want to complain about their husbands or this person that they married. And I'm saying, these are things that whoever was representing you had to do. You're in it now. You can't be like, you can't demand more of him than, well, I can't live like this. You should have thought about that before you chose to live with him. Yeah. But I'll continue. So the work history, you got to get into that. And especially within the parents, of course, are a key as well. Now, that was just dealing with the men. That's if you need to vet a man for as a potential spouse. So a lot of the same things is going to be for a woman. But and let me just say this: if you were going to if you were going to loan someone, right? This is for the women especially. If you were going to loan someone $100,000 or $1 million or whatever, how much investigation or information would you require from this person before you would loan them even $100 or just say $1 million or $1 billion, right? So how much are you worth? You're showing how much you feel like you're worth by how much you're going to vet the level of vetting that you're going to do with that person. I'm not going to loan anybody $100,000 that I don't have some very, very, very detailed, and I'm confident in the whole aspect of their conduct, their financial, their social, all these things. So if a woman is saying that if you're worth 100,000, $1 million, $1 billion, you're priceless, treat yourself that way and make sure that you have someone who will represent you, and you will demand that this type of vetting is done on your behalf and that you're involved in that, because you're turning over. And for the woman, you are agreeing to choose a leader for you in your life, in all aspects of your life, and you're going to live and obey and follow this person. So these things need to be done. I cannot stress it enough.
That's very well said, very well articulated, Mubarak. Very well articulated.
Yes, I was going to say, thank you, Mubarak, for articulating that so well. Those are very important considerations for any woman that should definitely not be ignored. So thank you for that. We're going to jump right into the questions now. So
I have one thing to add on, just another plug to what Mubarak mentioned real quickly, is that we do offer that service to people where we will vet potential candidates for you. And it actually it's a very good service that you should take advantage of, because you don't actually have to be the one feeling awkward about asking hard questions. We're the third party. We don't have any skin in the game. We're going to ask the hard questions and put the pressure on somebody and interrogate and investigate the claims that people are making. And you don't have to be the bad guy. We could do that for you. So, and if you have someone else that could do that for you, then great. Take advantage of that so that you can still sit back and be present a good image and be friendly and be kind and all these different things. And someone else can be the bad guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry. I know I got a few more things to say. I know I came late, but let me just get this off before we go to the questions. And the thing is that always, just like Jaffa talking about the vetting service, if you can, and this is for the men and the women, if you can put someone else completely in between you and that potential partner, then do it. It's going to be it's going to help you to be able to make the right decisions. The woman can be her decision making can be clouded by that Bismillah brother who's just men can be charismatic and be telling you a bunch of fluff. They might not even tell a lie, but they're just saying a bunch of fluffy stuff and nothing is actually like that you can actually hold down. And women can have the same effect on men to where she could be saying a bunch of nothing and you're just looking and hearing her voice. And it's like, what I mean? You already in your mind, you already said, I'm marrying this woman. I'm going to do it. And all types of red flags can be coming up. And so then you try to fit her into your program, even though she never fit in the beginning, because physically the way that she looked and how she sounded. And for a lot of people, it's like maybe they can see a woman, but when they talk to her and they hear that voice and she says his name and brother so-and-so, whatever, it's a wrap. She's got him cooked. He's hooked. He's never going to be able to back out of it. So I would say if you can put someone else in between you and that potential person that you're considering, it will be helpful for you. But so for the woman, the number one thing is, and I'll try to go through this thing very quickly. Number one thing, as you know what I'm going to say, it is the father. It is her male family members. How she deals with her father, her relationship with her father is going to be very, very, very similar to the relationship that you will have with her until either you're able to develop and grow a new type of relationship and she relearns dealing with a man who's an authority figure over her, living in a house with her. Really learns a different way to do that. But if the woman does not have a good relationship with her father, you're likely going to have the type of problems that a father would have that didn't have a good relationship with his daughter. For instance, usually fathers that don't have a good relationship with their daughter, maybe they say he's not taking care of her or whatever it might be. Usually it's like, it's usually confrontational. And I think we've touched on this a lot in other shows, so I'm not gonna harp on it, but you're playing with fire if you have to know what you're getting into. So if you do that and she doesn't have a relationship with her father, or you don't interview and talk about the father, this is a major thing that people overlook. They don't talk to the family members. They don't talk to, like I said, the exes, but we already went over that. But I'll skip to the thing is, because all the other things that we're talking about that I detail with the man, it's the same for the woman as far as those finances or check stubs or co-workers or whatever. All those things can still be applied, but the cherry on top for the woman especially is the father. If she doesn't have a good relationship with the father, you have to factor that in. Now, if I can just deal with the other part of the thing where it says, should you marry a revert? What is a revert? How long is someone a revert? Because this is the thing. Sometimes if a person is a revert, if we're talking about someone who sees you see them, and they're not a Muslim, and then they either become Muslim between the time you met them and you get married, or they become Muslim after you get married. This is what I'm considering like a revert, because someone could be, after a person has been Muslim for 1 or 2 years, quite frankly, they should be at the very least at a level, have a baseline level of knowledge and information about Islam to where they should be able to operate in a good way. But that doesn't always happen. We understand. So 5 years, what is it? I mean, you can come up with a number, 5 years, 10 years after you take Shahada, then you're not a revert anymore, because you can't carry that label forever. Oh, I'm brand new. No, you're new. A lot of times they're new when it's convenient. And then I've been a Muslim for a long time when it's convenient. No. So it's like, so, you gotta pipe the brakes on that. But
just to add a little twist to that too is a lot of reverts sometimes actually within 1 or 2 years are more knowledgeable than Muslims that have been Muslim their entire life, because they go through that new Shahada period where they're like studying and learning and absorbing. So there's that too.
So that's what I'm saying. After the person goes through that new Shahada period and then they get to a cruising altitude as a Muslim, I don't know that you put them in the revert category, but you would put them in the category still of vetting them on those other levels. But as far as a revert, should you marry a revert? In short, do not do it. If you have to, and this is the thing, why do people marry reverts? People marry reverts because either one, there is gaping holes in their network of Muslims. Or as far as the people who come from Muslim families and backgrounds or whatever, their qualifications, they find it hard to meet the qualification that those people have. 2 or 3, they have met that person at work or in business or somewhere along the way, and their physical attraction is what's pulling them to them, not necessarily the other things. So that is the danger zone. Most reverts, people try to, after they become attracted to them and they like them, then they say, okay, I need this person to become Muslim. I need this.
Yeah.
So they're trying to fit that in after the fact. And so the revert starts to consider Islam because they like you.
That's a good point.
And so this is why people usually, if you look at every single person who has married a revert, man or woman, most of the time it's because of this. They met them, they worked them, they saw them or they went to school with them or whatever, and they saw the relationship was not because, okay, I'm looking for a husband or a wife. Okay, this is the qualifications I'm looking for. Now let me see who fits. No, it was like, oh wow, I just saw this girl, man, she's pretty. All right, man, and I saw her again. Oh wow. Okay, you're working with him, like, man, she's kind of good, man. I mean, then you're like, all right, then you're stuck. So this is probably one of the worst decisions you can make as far as why to marry a person. Now, I'm not saying that if you do marry a person, that it's going to be a disaster. I'm saying a lot of people that have the problems with these things we talked about as far as vetting, a lot of times reverts, they skip all of that. Yep. Because the revert is usually they meet them in that type of situation where physically and emotionally they have become attached to them before any of this is considered. So they're like, I want to marry you. Let me try to work backwards now and just get it done. Become Muslim. Take your shahada. You know,
it's almost like a giant red flag, because even if you do the vetting or whatever, you're already clouded. So and then you also have to consider, we talked about like the new shahada phase, right? You're actually engaged with them in the new shahada phase. So it's almost like they're in Ramadan, right? So you're seeing their most pious self. They're engaged in Islam. So everything's actually a fault. Before, like you said, the cruising altitude, they didn't hit that yet. So you don't get to see that. Okay, you know what? They actually don't pray. They actually aren't into certain Islamic concepts, but everything at the beginning is like everything's new and you're into it, you're holy. It's I like how you distinguish between
and when you think about this, what happens, okay, when you say get to cruising altitude, if we're talking about getting on a plane, what happens between the time you start to take off and cruising altitude? Turbulence, it's all, that joint is rocky as heck. So you got all types of, it's not smooth. You're not gonna, sit a cup of water on it. That's why they tell you close your tray tables, because anything on that joint is going to spill. So that's the same thing. Before they get to that cruising altitude, you are choosing a person. You don't know whether they're going to stick to Islam. You don't know whether they like Islam more or they like you more. So, you want a person who.
So this is a slippery slope, a real slippery slope, unfortunately. And you guys hit on some really, really good points. So I have another analogy. Me and my brother, we use this analogy. We call it the fog. And basically, when you're in the fog, you think you can see. You know how, like, when you're coming up on a big patch of fog and you're like, man, it's no way I'm about to be able to see through this jaw. But then when you go into the fog, you can start to see a little bit. So typically, to your point, Mubarak, we get into that fog because we want to make it make sense. We want to make it make sense. We're like, okay, no, and then we even convince ourselves a lot of times, woman does and man does. Oh, she's Muslim. She became Muslim because she wanted to. We'll just keep telling ourselves that. You know what I'm saying? We're in the fog. And like you said, you need a person in between who's outside of the fog and can say to you, no, brother, you're in fog right now. We'll be on, somebody will be on either sides of the fog, seeing that you're in the fog. They're looking, they can't see nothing. You in the fog. They can't see you in there, but you're in it. You know what I'm saying? And when you come out would be the analogy of what you were saying, like when now, you're on cruise control, but up in between there, pure fog. And most of us, unfortunately, because we don't have what we're talking about right now is crucial. And a lot of us did not have this information. No one told us about none of this. We just kind of went through and just made up stuff in our own minds. And I was telling Jaffer this early. There's certain mistakes that you can only make once in your life. And it's going to be costly. You know what I'm saying? So these are one of those type of times where you have to be real careful about the decision that you make and try your best to stay out of that fog and put someone in between who's outside of the situation.
That's
and
key.
can, so that's good stuff, brothers.
And that's the thing. Honestly, I mean, reverts, man or woman, I mean, it could almost be a revert man, maybe even more dangerous than a revert woman, but they live in the fog. If you want marrying a revert, like you literally go to the fog and be like, yo, hey, anybody in there? I mean, that's what you're doing. I mean, that's what it is. They live in the fog. That's where their house is at. And like, you go in that joint, and what you wind up with on the other side is, it's a crapshoot. And the thing is, another thing that you have to factor in is that a revert is going to be at that baby level. I think Jafar was mentioning that earlier. They're going to be like a baby in a lot of things as far as Islamically. Mm-hmm. But one thing that does break apart relationships is when one person in the relationship starts to do better. So that is automatic with reverts. If they do become Muslim and stay Muslim, they will be ascending at a accelerated rate. And if that person who was kind of just a Bismillah brother, he's wasn't really practicing that much, the more pious she gets and the more she starts practicing, it's going to tear the relationship, because she's starting to adhere to all the aspects of Islam that she learns about. This brother knew all this Islam, but he wasn't practicing it. So now he's like, nah, I want you to be like how it was, and vice versa. So I would just say, if you have to consider a revert, it's sorry to say, it's going to be for one of those reasons. She caught your eye and you got hooked, and now you're here. Or you could not get anybody in the Muslim community because due to your clout or due to those holes in your ability to do it, or something like that. But that's how people wind up with reverts. It's not a bad word. Revert, you're coming into a situation where you weren't a Muslim, you're unknown or whatever. So it's not, we can't look at it like, well, they're just bashing reverts. This is the reality of the situation. You were not a Muslim yesterday. Now you're a Muslim today. That's like, I mean,
let's put a disclaimer. Let's put a disclaimer, because we understand that what we're talking about right now is going to rub people, because, a lot of our mothers, a lot of our fathers would feel a certain way, like, man, I came in, I was I was a convert or revert or whatever. And, they might feel a certain way, but we're just trying to give raw information about what the reality is. Because
the thing is too, we're different. Like there's different scenarios. It's a different scenario for someone who's been Muslim for years or their whole life, whatever, marrying a revert as Mubarak has defined it, or two reverts marrying each other. Yeah. Those are two different situations, which a lot of our parents, they're two reverts. Yeah. Right. They may have been actually even married before and other different, like, all right, let's become Muslim now. So like, that's a whole different situation. But I think the main message needs to be, and that people need to really accept this, when we talk about red flags, when we talk about don't do it, this is a big sign, like a caution. Yeah. And now if you are going to go down that path, that windy path that has cliffs and all these hazards, you have to be extra cautious. You have to do your due diligence even more. Like, we caught flack for people saying, oh, should I marry someone that has a kid already? And we're like, don't do it, right? Us saying don't do it is like, okay, if you're going to do it, that means you should have did 10 times more work and vetting and being careful than the normal person in a normal situation.
Let me make a statement, and then I got a question for you, Jafar. I'm going to ask you this question, Jafar. If you want to chime in, Hussein, you can, but I'm asking this question to Jafar. Mm-hmm. This is my advice to anyone who marries a revert. If a Muslim woman marries a man who's reverting to Islam or whatever, and he's brand new, like he saw you, he liked you, then he became Muslim, don't marry that person. Really, that's that. There's going to be something. But if you do, you should avoid having children with that man for a minimum of 2 years. And you should do whatever you have to do to avoid having children, because that is what's going to handicap you. Because I have seen this. A very, very beautiful Muslim sister that we grew up with married a person who, and all the boys were chasing after her. They liked her. I remember, my older brothers, whatever, everybody wanted this girl. So a very, very beautiful non-Muslim man saw her. She was working. He wooed her, whatever. He took his shahada probably the day before they got married. That John was just crazy. Anyway, had a bunch of kids with her. Then he left Islam, bashed Islam or whatever. Then took her to court told her she was a crazy person in a cult and extreme Muslim and got her kids and everything. The point is that this happens, so be very careful. But I would caution the Muslim sisters, if you do, avoid having children for at least 2 years. After that 2-year mark, you will be able to see whether this person is serious about Islam, whether you can work and live with them or whatever. And then, and for the man also, if you marry a revert sister or whatever, if you can avoid it for at least 2 years. Within that 2 years, you will see what you need to see. But having children is very, very, very serious, and it can handicap you for the rest of your life. If you have children with the wrong person, and I think we understand that. But my question is for Jaffer: if a revert sister who she's not Muslim yet, she says, "Hey, James, whatever, I'm really interested in Islam, and I'm also very interested in you. What would it take for you to?" Because I mean, she's very beautiful, so you're going to consider it. But what I'm saying is, what would it take for you to marry her? What would you say that it would take for you to say, yeah, okay, I'm going to marry this revert sister who thinks I'm just beautiful, but she also said that she's willing to become Muslim. What would it take for her to get you to sign on the dotted line and say, I'm marrying you?
A recommendation from my current wife. That's literally that would be the only, like, my for that situation, my current wife would actually have to say, yeah, I think you should do it. I think we should do this. Other than that, like, because we already know what you're potentially getting into, just with, forget revert, right? Just with polygamy and all that, right? But at the stage I am in my life right now, right? Being 45 years old, already had multiple relationships, marriages, and in the stage I'm in right now, there's certain things I know that I'm not going to have the patience for, right? There's certain things that I can't deal with, right? There's certain things that I don't want to deal with. And for me to say I'm going to go into that, it actually, my current wife would literally have to convince me to do it. Literally. Right now, because I know I'm going into that situation. It's basically, I'm going into a deficit situation right off the start. Right. I'm starting from square one right from the start. Right. So if Beyonce came to me and said, "Hey, what's up?" I'm like, "Yeah, go talk to my wife." Literally right out the back. I got that. Go talk to my wife.
You might have to talk to her after for me, but anyway. No, I'm kidding. No,
well, let's say a broke Beyonce. We'll say that.
Yeah, the broke Beyonce. Yeah. Get out of here. Get out of here. I done seen this movie before. Get away from me.
Yep. And I mean, the thing is, and like, it may be different for like maybe a young man or whatever, but I really like how Mubarak touched on, like, if we're defining a revert as someone that is taking their shahada after you know them, then you have to really be cautious. In the rare situation where, like, say an imam of a masjid comes up to you and says, "Hey, I got somebody that might match up with you," that's maybe a little bit different, but that's rare. Usually the imam's probably trying to marry them anyway. But a whole different discussion. But that's that's a little bit different.
All right, let's try to get to the questions here if we could.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, of course. All right, so the first question says, my wife and I are both reverts. She is newer than me. She seems to live 2 lives. Modest Muslima when with me and at the masjid, but a secret Muslim with old friends and at work. What do I do?
This is part of the problems we talked about with dealing with reverts, and I think Mubarak touched on about, like, getting references from their workplace. And when we become Muslim, what even I being a revert, like, sometimes people are Muslim and then they decide to, like, start practicing Islam, but we have to let go of what we consider like our non-Muslim lives, our old lives. You don't want to live a double standard, right? And like I've encountered it where, like, you go to a new job and you're like, you're already like the odd guy out, especially if like you're a minority. There's different things you face on that aspect. And it's like, okay, now I got to be like, yeah, I'm Muslim. But as far as like in a relationship, men and women, you have to protect yourself and you have to protect your relationship. And the workplace is a fitna in this society, right? You get comfortable, like you see people at work that you is probably sometimes more than you see your own family members, right? Well, depending on the job you're working in, depending on how close you are in proximity, you're spending a lot of time with the individuals, right? There's no gender separation. You have these concepts of like, oh, this is my work wife or this is my work husband and all these different things. And as Muslims, we have to protect ourselves from that and from having these inappropriate relationships or interactions with people. And the best way to protect yourself from doing that is making it known that you are Muslim. For Muslim women, so this guy, I would definitely encourage her to dress as a Muslim as much as possible. So that right there, you have the visual thing, right? Okay, she's wearing hijab. There's only certain ways that I can approach her, right? That'll be enough to deter right there for a lot of times for women. Men, we have a little bit different, right? If you can wear like Islamic garb or kufi or something that says, hey, why are you wearing that? Right? You don't have to go there and be like, wear the turban and come in a thobe. You can be that guy, but you want to do something that makes it known. Any opportunity you have to make it known to your coworkers that it's Muslim. Hey, I can't eat right now. I'm fasting. You're fasting. Why are you fasting? Oh, I'm Muslim, right? Even as little as just any opportunity you get to make it known to your coworkers that you're Muslim, it'll protect you from certain things, right? They won't offer you any haram meat. They won't say, hey, let's go get drinks. I mean, they may, but once you say, no, I can't because I'm Muslim, they won't ask you again to go drink after work hours. They won't ask you to do certain things.
I would ask real quick to add to that. I would ask how many years have they both been Muslim? Because basically, how long has this been going on? Because it sounds like some boundaries need to be set or some boundaries have been violated. So the question, that's what I would ask. I would start there. Okay, you're saying we're revert Muslims, but what are we talking about? It goes back to what Mubarak was saying. It depends on how you consider yourself a revert. Have y'all been doing this for 2 years? Has it been going on for 5 years? Because if it's been going on for a certain amount of time and boundaries have been blurred or have been transgressed, then it's going to be hard to pull that person back over there if you're trying to be serious or be like, okay, no, I don't want her or him to do X, Y, and Z. Because if a woman feels comfortable doing that, that's a big, big problem. Big problem.
It's a big problem for both, I believe, because the thing is like what it's showing is that the person's possibly enjoying and not wanting to let go of a certain type of lifestyle,
right,
or certain relationships they have in certain spaces, right? And as Muslims, like one of our things, we're supposed to give dawah, and simply just by people, like for instance, I forget who it was that was given a talk about something. I forget who it was, but it was talking about like as Muslims, we have a certain type of pride that we're supposed to have as Muslims, right? For instance, like if we're walking down the street and a non-Muslim's walking down the same path, we aren't supposed to move out their way. Because the pride that we have as Muslims, like, no, you move out my way, right? And of course, there's like context with that, right? Like, so like you may want to give dawah and move out the way of a lady or an old person or whatever. But the key here is that it's not dawah if they don't know you're Muslim.
Mm.
They didn't say, oh, this Muslim just moved out this old lady's way and let her take the path and all that. No, you're just a regular guy, right? So it's very important to protect ourselves, to protect Islam. And again, right, one of the things too, especially as males and females, we have a certain amount of emotional energy, right? And if you're expending that energy in a different space, right, whether it be at work or with different groups of friends, that energy won't be there inside your home with your relationship, with your spouse. So you have to be very careful about how you protect your energy. So if you're like all your, like, say like your conversation and engagement is all taken up at work, then you get home from work and your spouse now wants that engagement, whether you're male or female, and you're like, nah, I just want to chill. I don't want to talk. This is affecting your relationship. So again, just what you should do is have a conversation with that person, right? maybe even ask to go meet the coworkers, go to a company picnic with them so that they like, oh, wait, oh, like, we're Muslim. Like, but that person should go let them know whatever option they can, slide it in there and let your coworkers know that you're Muslim. Let your friends know that you're Muslim. Like Hussein said, establish some boundaries. And I think, things will go easier from there. It's not as bad as it sounds. A lot of people have this anxiety about like, oh, if they're going to know I'm Muslim, they're going to think I'm a terrorist. And, all the, no, don't, we live in a society today where like, you're cool if you're different, right? They're going, oh, you're Muslim. Oh, tell me about Ramadan. Tell me about this and that. So,
Thank you, brothers. Excellent. All right. So the next question is, my wife is too jealous. She fights me every time I talk to other females who are friends and basically like family since we know each other since we were kids. How can I tell her there is nothing to worry about?
Go ahead.
I would say there's a lot to worry about, actually.
I was just about to say that.
You can't tell her there's nothing to worry. There's a lot to worry about. Yeah, you can't tell her there's nothing to worry about. There's red flags all over this show. Number one, she there's no friends. There's no female friends.
Right.
Not a family member. Even cousins can be, and that's like literally on the fence where you can marry your cousin, but the cousin is a blood relative. But anybody that's not a cousin, I mean, she should be. I don't know if jealous is the right word. I don't know if she should be jealous. But she should definitely be telling you, as any other Muslim, whether it's your wife or whoever, it's like, yo, these women that you're having these friendly and joking and laughing and hugging maybe or whatever it might be. Yeah, no, this can't happen. So she's actually correct. I would say the only thing that I would say on the other end is that the jealousy should be for the right reason. So you shouldn't be jealous because, okay, he's talking to these people and you want him to talk to you that way. You should be, I mean, the jealousy, if there's going to be, you shouldn't be jealous, but if it's that way, it should be for Islam. Like, okay, this person is violating something, or he's going in an area where Islamically he should not be. So you should be more, ready to help him to stop doing that because of the situation he's going to get in with Allah and with his creator. And then your relationship is really secondary. But I understand that it is understandable. I don't agree to be jealous in that situation, but I understand. So, but yeah, definitely, if that person is not a family member, and even cousins should be limited, then you should really cut those relationships off, and you really don't need to be talking and kicking it with them. And sometimes it's hard because if you have known them for years, it's hard to dial it back. And, I know a lot of people who have known me for years. And maybe when I was, 20 years old, I was a little bit more like, cool or whatever. And so they see you 5 years later and they want to run up and give you a hug or actually how you're doing or whatever. Just down in this area of the country, people just hug. Like in the South, people, when they talk to you, they say hi and they hug you. Men, women or whatever, they're going to hug you. And that's something that you have to get ahead of.
To your point, Mubarak, yeah, this one, again, we're older, we're more experienced now. Short and simple, no, that is not acceptable to be having these, type of engagements with people that you can marry. However, on the other side, I mean, if I'm just putting myself in the guy's position, to give a quick story, I have a younger sister, and literally, I used to just take her. I used to go pick up her friends and stuff like that. They were all like 8, 9 years old. You know what I mean? And they knew me as, my sister's big brother or whatever. And fast forward, and we had good relationships with their family. But fast forward 6, 7, 8 years, and this woman is full stack now. Now, and she still looks and views me as the older brother. So she runs up, it's one time. I'm just saying, I can understand, but it's not acceptable. And even I had to check myself. Basically, she just said, "Oh, Hussein," just ran up and hugged me. I'm just like, you know what I mean? And then someone else sees it and is like, yo, but they don't know our history. They don't know that this was just my little sister's friend who I used to pick up and, and I have a relationship with the family. But even then, the guy, you have to be more aware of what's going on. If you're one of those type of flirtatious type of dudes, you always in everybody's face. This is problematic and it's not acceptable. You know what I'm saying? But I'm trying to basically give some grace of understanding, you know, because if you take that same situation and take it to the other end, I've had situations on the way other end where an older woman who they've known me since I was younger. Now let's take it over there.
Yeah.
They've known me since I was younger, and I remember this one situation. I'm not naming anybody, but this older sister, literally, she happened to come to one of my children's births or whatever. She's knew me since I was younger. She literally just came over there, stuck for law, but she was, she came, hugged me. And this is right now, listen, this is right in front of my wife. She just hugged me. My wife said nothing. Oh no, me and her, we talked about it afterwards. My wife said nothing. You feel what I'm saying? It was like, oh, it's regular normal. She just came, hugged me because she knew me since I was young. Literally, I went and sat down on a chair. She just sat down on a chair right next to me, put her hand on my thigh, you know what I mean? And proceeded to and I was like, you know what I mean? And I'm trying to, you feel what I'm saying? I'm a man now. I'm a full stack man. This is my wife. I understand we had this relationship when we were younger, but this is not acceptable. And honestly, I felt kind of violated. You know what I'm saying? And I spoke to my wife about this, but I'm basically saying this to say there is some nuance in that, and it does get blurred because we don't keep the relationships where they need to be from the outset. We are always transgressing all of these different boundaries, and this cousin, you can marry this cousin, you can marry this stepbrother, and all this different stuff.
And I think there's a difference between like something like that occurring where like you're caught off guard and you kind of have like no control, but if something is that is continuous behavior where like you're having repeated interactions with individuals and as men, and this we're speaking from a Muslim perspective, but this applies to a non-Muslim perspective as well.
All day,
because like you'll
see each other right on the cheek.
Yeah, and even if like say this guy who asked the question, even if your intentions are pure, you have no side thoughts. This person is like your friend from whatever way back in the day or whatever it is. You consider them family, whatever. You have to know that you don't know this other person's intentions, and you don't know what situations are going on that will put you in a circumstance. We've seen it in movies all the time where, guys and girls are friends and they never had any romantic feelings about each other their whole entire lives. And all of a sudden, like maybe like her boyfriend just dumped her and he's being the shoulder to lean on. All of a sudden like, hey, what happened? We just kissed or we just touched. This stuff happens in real life. So you have to protect yourself.
I agree with you on what you're saying, but the one thing that I don't believe at all, I don't believe there's ever any situation where two people don't have some
of course,
some sexual energy between them.
Of course,
like they may just keep it dormant for a little bit, but no, it's still existing.
Yeah, if the woman, if for the woman it's dormant, for the man it ain't, and vice versa. Like depending on how, like sometimes it like if both people are just like there might be some equilibrium where neither one is really like yeah, all right, but I ain't really feeling it. But the more attractive one is more than the other, then the more, especially for men, then it's going to be like that, and there's always going to be some there. So the Islamic thing is that's why we as Muslims we don't deal with it at all. But I do have. I do want to ask one question, and I think Micaiah might be in a good position to answer this from a woman's perspective, because we had the question where the man was saying that his wife, my wife is too jealous and she fights me every time he's talking to these non-mahram and these people who he shouldn't be talking to. He thinks there's nothing to worry about. So for Micaiah, I want to know how would you advise this sister in how she should approach or deal with her husband and help him through this? Because from her perspective, her husband is definitely wrong, but she kind of has to manage it a certain way. So what advice will you give to her as how to deal with this situation?
That's a good question, Mubarak. The first thing that comes to mind is maybe she should probably speak to someone that they both, a male figure that they both know, trust, and respect, and probably communicate it to him so that he can, talk to the brother see what's going on, explain. Someone who's obviously Muslim, who upholds the Islamic values and things, because sometimes that works a bit better. As women, we could probably just annoy, the man, or, go on and on and on. So, that's one route. Like the brother said, my wife is too jealous. She fights me every time. That's his perspective. So unfortunately, from my own experience, like when something matters to you deeply and you keep addressing it, you keep bringing it up to your husband, unfortunately, it doesn't make sense. I don't know how, like, sometimes you guys like turn your ears off or something. It doesn't even get through. So he sees it. He's obviously in the wrong. And he literally, like he says, sees it as she is fighting him. That's unfortunate. But and another way is to probably like provide examples to him, or speak softly to him, like, okay, babe, what do you think if it was like this? If things were switched around, if the tables were turned, how would you feel? And you want to evoke like some type of emotion from the man, like, okay, can you understand it from this perspective? What if it was me? What if I had friends? And try to communicate in a way that speaks to him on his level. So that's like the best way I can answer. Sometimes it's very difficult when the man sees you as literally fighting him. It's hard, but perhaps in those ways, seeking counsel with another man to, you want you want to be someone that the brother respects. You know what I mean? Not just anyone, not just, you don't seek refuge in any man. And first you go to Allah. So someone that the brother respects, that can talk to him, that they have a relationship built for years, and or the imam or something, so that he's able to communicate with the brother on a man-to-man level. And then in another way, of course, like just speaking softly, try to provide like real practical examples, even though that's not your intentions, or you would never do the thing. But, well, how would that man feel if it was his wife? So that's all I got.
You know what I'm seeing, like a lot of what we're talking about, and we should probably delve more into this at some point, but just the importance of having some kind of third entity involved in everything, almost like in the vetting process. And then even when you get together, when there's like, because Makai just mentioned like someone else that you both respect and take their opinion, that you can go to, like, hey, we're having this issue, right? Because a lot of times, like from the beginning to the end, we try to solve everything on our own. We talk past each other. We don't vet a person and like all these issues. But if there was always some third party there, whether it's a parent, mutual friend, imam, somebody they both respect and take from. And I guess the key is they both respect and take from, can avoid a lot of these issues or solve a lot of issues that people encounter in relationships.
You're not going to be able to sidestep everything. That's just not realistic. You have to be able to live with some things. You have to be able to absorb certain things that's coming from your spouse, or, people that you're in charge of, or people that you deal with on a regular basis, even your friends. If you have close relationships with your friends, you have to accept whatever that relationship is. Of course you can build it, but there's going to probably be things that might irk you or annoy you about that person. And that's just regular life stuff. But some of the major things that you would consider deal breakers, you have to, set some boundaries with whoever you're dealing with, set some strong boundaries and make sure that that's communicated. So,
and I want to just run real quick with the brother said that, his wife is feeling jealous. And I touched on a little bit in the other question we had about like the sister having two different lives, right? And about your emotional energy, right? How much energy you have. And this actually plays into it, and it probably plays into his partner's jealousy and the fact that whatever relationships you have, because let's be real, when men and women have relationships, people that like not family, even within families, the man is receiving a certain type of emotional or relationship feedback or currency from that person, right? That only a female can give. That's why they're actually engaged with them at a certain point. Like, let's just say a halal one. Like, your brother and sister are really close. They joke together all the time. Like, the reason that dynamic works is he's receiving some kind of relationship currency from her that only a female can provide. Otherwise, he'd go to his brother, a friend, or whatever. So, like, when you're doing that with people that actually you should not be doing that with, people that you aren't related to, right? You're also giving something away. That person is taking something from you, and now I bet the same people that do this have issues at home, which the man or the woman will be jealous of because they see them expending that emotional currency with somebody else, and they want that, right? And they see it's also, that's where the jealousy comes. You see it's with like, wait, you're doing that with another man when you don't do that with me, or you're doing that with another woman and you don't do that with me, whether it's joking, whether it's just like telling stories or whatever it is. Like, no, to protect your relationship, try to save that emotional currency for the ones that'll actually benefit you and not give you a headache if you're not sharing that with them. Spend that emotional currency on the ones that actually, you invested in to actually share it with.
This is why the ladies always love Jafar, but they hate me. Anyway, let me tell you something. I mean, that's nice, but let's also not let these ladies off the hook because that man might be. He's not right. He is not right for having all these just the relationships or talking and chatting or whatever, spending all of his emotional energy. I like that because I never really factored that in, but I'll give you a point for that because I can see how you have a limit to that. But that lady at home, ladies, we have to be engageable. We have to be approachable. We have to be to where he does find it enjoyable to talk and chat and shoot the breeze with you. And so that has to factor in as well. He's wrong. The man is wrong for doing that. But let's realize why he might be more comfortable, doing that because at home he's getting a 1, 2, 3, 4 on a regular basis.
and to add to that, and this is a serious problem that I do see happening. Women be looking up like, oh, why is he doing this? What's happening? It's like, men naturally are attracted to feminine energy. So if you have a woman inside of a house who is not exuding that, and you have other women, we talked about workplace, this gets real problematic and it's dangerous because if a man is at a workplace, we're using a man and woman right now. If a man is at a workplace and there's a coworker or something, and she is exuding this feminine essence and energy, which is what he's attracted to, and he's void of this at his home. When he comes home, like you said, he getting, 3-piece and a biscuit, inside his head when he comes back to the house, and that continues, and it's going to create a problem. Then the women, a lot of times they just act oblivious. What's going on?
Let's dive into that a little bit real quick. Let's dive into that a little bit. So one, man, if you have someone in your workplace that's exuding more feminine energy than your wife at home, run away, right? Run away because she's exuding that feminine energy to you for a reason.
We're not even designed to do that.
Yeah, hold on. Okay, let me let you. I'm gonna let you go. I'm like Kanye. I'm gonna let you finish. But
okay, here's the other part of it. To touch on to like why, like for instance, like you have this concept of work wife, work husband, right? Or why this guy is giving this emotional currency to this person at work or whatever, right? And all, like Mubarak had mentioned, like, how are you at home? Because typically when those relationships that are outside of the home they have no strings attached. They're superficial, right? It's basically easy, right? There's no consequences. There's no there's no hidden agenda or undue expectations. So you can have this, like they say, work wife. That means like you get to joke with this person, you get to be free with this person, you get peace and quiet and get to have this engagement with this person without getting headaches, right? That's why they have this work wife and work husband. And so, as Mubarak mentioned, if you are in a situation where, like, why is this? Again, it was not giving an excuse for the guy, because especially as Muslims, you should not be doing this at all. But it's also a learning opportunity for the partner to say, wait, why is he cool with sister so-and-so so much and not with me? What is it that is why? How can I get that? How can I get him to be comfortable that he's gonna joke? Like, let's say joking, he's gonna tell those same jokes with me instead of her, right? Maybe she actually laughed at his jokes, and you're like, ah, stupid, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, ladies, they give that little fake laugh all the time. Yeah, we know when you're fake laughing. I mean, but it's like we don't care. We're like, all right.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, what is at work that husband is going to be? You know, there's sometimes women even say, "I love a man in uniform." A man in uniform says a lot of things about him. You know, that subconsciously a woman taps into. You know, and if he is a supervisor or he's a leader or something at work, these women are. He's leading the show. He's running the show, and they're, hey, so and so, Jimmy, can I go take a break? Yeah, go ahead, Sally, no problem. And she's like, oh, thank you very much. And so she's all submissive and everything. So he's I'm not saying you, but yeah, but
try to get me in trouble.
Hey, great job on your report, Sally. I really like that. You're really showing this. You're really stepping up there. So, oh yeah, thank you. I just really love it. So there's an element to where, in that role, he may be receiving the type of that feminine energy. It comes out true. From that's a person true. Who is masculine. It exudes from, and so he's getting that feedback or whatever. And there's one phenomenon that happens a lot where they tell the story. Sometimes a man, some of these men who they have a secretary, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes when the wife is afraid and she thinks her husband's going to leave her or whatever, one of the people she goes to and asks, how can I get my husband back, or what did I need to do she goes to the secretary, and the secretary, mm-hmm. his secretary or his personal assistant. And sometimes he's assistant in everything. But the thing is that she goes to her, the wife goes to her, and the personal assistant, the secretary or whatever, is able to tell her, this is what you need to do. This is what he likes or whatever, because her job for however many years, sometimes she has a personal assistant for years. And yeah, that sometimes they do turn into a physical relationship, because what is she doing? She is listening to everything he's saying. She is helping him, making his life easier. She's taking care of all the mm-hmm. things around him so that he can shine and he can do the things that he needs to do. It's like a personal assistant, a secretary is pretty much what a wife does inside the home, but she's outside the home working with him every day. So what you have is a situation where, yeah, he might be friendly. And that's why that happens a lot of times, where that boss or that man or whatever, his wife might treat him any old type of way at home, but the secretary is like on point with everything. And she's very submissive. She listens, she obeys, she's obedient, and all those things that we talked about. Yeah. And then now it's like, well, you're perfect. The only thing left to do is,
how many times have we seen that story? Yeah. And again, just for any guys that are listening, don't go back and be like, see, it's all your fault, because no, it's not an excuse to do what you're doing. And I want to touch real quick, because I know myself, Hussein Mubarak's definitely in this position where we're put in situations where we do have to deal with members of the opposite sex for actually legit reasons, whether it's counseling, marital issues, or whatever, right? We're in the situation where we have to do it. And so I'll first address, like, as far as like my recommendations for guys that are in those positions. One, make sure it's limited to what is actually necessary, because you will find yourself possibly getting caught up where it went from something that's, I'll say, professional, dealing with a need, whether it's marital counseling, but then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now she's texting you for any old blue thing, right? Just, hey, what'd you eat for dinner? Hey, I'm about to go out. Like, all of a sudden you're just conversating. It's like, wait a minute, I was giving you marital counseling. Why are we just chatting, right? So you have to make sure you protect yourself from that. Two, one way you can easily protect yourself from that is to make sure that your spouse is aware of it, and also sometimes even involved in it. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's like creating a group chat room or whatever, or, when you do have the conversations, like, for instance, sometimes when I'm involved in that situation, I'll be on the phone right in front of my wife. She don't really care what's going on, but at least, like, oh, he's not in there saying sweet nothings, and they're not talking. Like, you have to find ways to protect yourself I'm not saying that's the answer for everybody, but find ways to protect yourself and also to reassure your partner that nothing nefarious is going on.
No,
it protects you and the person that you're actually dealing with in a professional capacity.
You're spot on. You're spot on right there. Now, we got a message over here I wanted to touch on real quick, just short. Sister Zena says, sometimes that happens because Shaitan makes every haram appealing. So I'm assuming she's referring to a man going out, and I guess kind of.
And this is true.
Yes, and I like to touch on this because sometimes it actually turns out the man does have a very submissive and feminine wife at home. Remember, it's like if another woman is still alluring, she's still convincing, she's very feminine, she's very attractive. That's still sometimes the man is a man and he errs and he does have his very obedient, submissive, feminine wife at home, yet he still steps out,
Yeah, we're not going to let the men off the hook for sure. No, we're not going to let the men off the hook for sure. Just like Zena is saying that it's not because his wife is not good at home. This is definitely when I'm saying that every man who has a friendly relationship with someone he shouldn't have to, it's not because his wife is not good at home. That's not what I'm saying.
What I'm saying and what I was going to say was, women, be aware of the temperature or the climate around you. Don't make it easy for Shaitan. Do not make it easier for him. You feel what I'm saying? If we want to go the Shaitan route, you feel what I'm saying? You at the house, you have responsibilities. You have to try to do your job as well. Build that relationship. Build that level of engagement. Build this up to where this man, like Jaffa was just saying, he has that level of comfort with his wife to where he's talking on the phone regular. She's comfortable. He's comfortable. He even has that level of comfort where if someone was to approach him, he would say, you got to speak to my missus. These levels take time. You have to build into that. On the flip side, you got somebody in the house who's misbehaving, non-compliant, combative, blah, 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 or certain different things going on, certain elements. And this is, a lot of times a man, y'all know this, we're men. So sometimes you sit out in your car, not us particular, but men will sit out in their car and they just sitting in the car, literally outside in the driveway, 5 to 10 minutes, because they know and understand what they're about to get into when they get into the house. So subconsciously, they're like, oh boy.
I think we all been there. I've been there before.
But it's a dance, so, it is the man's conduct as well that gives the woman reassurance, as Jaffa was saying, any woman can feel comfortable, knowing, yes, my husband, he speaks to a woman every day on a daily basis. But how does he conduct himself? When you trust the way that the man conducts himself, the woman is secure, period, and it's not all on her to help him resist the Shaitan. It's both of them. They're working together, protecting 100%. Themselves.
And I think men definitely, as far as this topic concerns, we have to recognize our vulnerabilities, our weaknesses as men. Mm-hmm. It's so easy for almost any woman to basically pick up a man, right? We just show us attention and we're like, like we're like goofy. This is how we are, right? We have men and we've all done it. We go and we just order something at the restaurant and someone who gives good customer service, you're like, oh,
you think she likes you.
Like she was just doing her job. Like, so we have to recognize our vulnerabilities, right? We have to protect ourselves from being in these situations where we can, misstep and Shaitan can push us in certain directions, so take whatever steps we can. And that, of course, the first step is just don't even engage in it, right? Mm-hmm. Don't even engage in it.
And I know we got to wrap. Let me just say this. Let me try to put a bow on this topic here, because I can see that it's kind of like what comes first, the chicken or the egg. It's because the wife is misbehaving at home that the husband finds comfort elsewhere. Okay, listen, this is the thing. Everybody can understand, like, as far as intimate relations, right? If a man doesn't get it at home, it's going to be hard for him to not seek it elsewhere, right? So if the wife is just saying, I'm not going to have any sex with my husband, then you're going to understand. It's easy for us to understand. Okay, we see like that's the case. All right. And vice versa. If the husband does that to the wife, you would see, okay, this husband is not being intimate with his wife at all. Eventually she's going to be maybe urged or pushed to find elsewhere. The same thing can be with some of those things where the man is feeling respected and loved and honored, and these type of things where that feminine energy, as we like to say, or whatever. If the man is not getting that at home, then he's more susceptible to it outside of the home. So these little sweet nothings and these friendly, you're so smart, Hussein, or whatever, these type of things, he's more susceptible to fall victim to liking that and kind of inviting that or accepting that. You know what I mean? Because he might, and I'm not saying Hussein in particular, I'm just using a name here.
Yeah.
But so the same way, if we're not conscious of that type of, like, we're all conscious of the sex part. It's like, okay, well, I'm doing my job there. There's also another part, that emotional part, and I hate to be more like Jaffa and we talk about emotions and all that, but it's real, you know what I mean? It's real. See, you're helping me, Jaffa. You're pulling me more towards it. But I'm saying it's a thing where we have to understand that yes, men have some emotional needs. They're different than women, but at the same time, if a woman is feeling like she's not being heard, or her husband is not spending time with her and talking to her and these things, and all of a sudden you find out that she has a friend that she chats with, or the man at the grocery store, she kind of like giggles with him or whatever because he's, talking about, well, I like your hijab and all that stuff, whatever. And you're like, well, you see why her husband never compliments her. Her husband is not, engaging with her like that. So that's why she's not having sex with that person, but she's not shutting that side of things down because she's not getting it. So we have to look at both sides and we have to help each other. Inside the home, the man should get those compliments and get, feel like, well, yeah, he's the man, and wow, you're really looking good in this shirt today, or whatever it might be, so that even though that will attract him when he's outside of the home, but he will be better able to deal with it because he's getting that inside the home. He's feeling like he's the boss inside the home. And so same thing with the women. It helps both ways. So I hope that makes sense.
I think a good way you put it is, put yourself in the other person's shoes and flip it around. So, man, if you're the one that's out having these interactions, whatever, say, would I be okay with my wife doing it? Woman, if you're doing the same thing, would I be okay with my husband doing it? And that's a very good test right there, just to say, like, hey, am I doing things okay right now? And I know from the man's perspective, we would not be okay with our wives. Most of us not be okay with our wives just being all chummy and friendly with some guy at work, or somebody who's like, oh, I grew up with him, and they're hugging and touching and just like, you'd be like, no, like, you need to chill out. Like, especially men, we already know he's not your friend. we know right up, he's not your friend. We already know what he's trying to do. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right. Awesome, brothers. Thank you so much. So as we wrap up today's episode of the Man's World podcast, we have explored the intricate topic of vetting your partner, especially when considering a convert or a revert to Islam. It is clear that relationships built on mutual respect, open communication, and shared values are crucial for success. Our brothers here, Jafar, Mubarak, and Hussein, definitely emphasize the crucial importance of deeply understanding the relationships your potential spouse has with either their mother, their father, their exes, male and female role models, etc. The insights shared today are a reminder of the vital things to keep in mind to save you time. Good stuff that will help you navigate the challenges of new and budding relationships. And I love these questions at the end, which lead to very rich discussions with these brothers. So we hope you found this discussion enlightening and helpful. Please remember, the journey of building a strong and lasting relationship is unique for everyone, and it gets hard, and you face that turbulence, like Mubarak said. So please stay tuned for the next episode, where we'll dive into another compelling topic. And until then, let's keep the conversation going. And don't forget to submit your questions anonymously in the link we pinned below. So until next time, this is A Man's World. Peace.
All right. We're also, real quick before we step off, we're going to just plug in that we are currently working on a marriage match form. And we're going to be trying to get that pinned into the, the description for anyone who's interested.
I want to read this comment real quick just before we go off. So, someone didn't have a question, but they submitted it through the forum. And they said, this isn't a question. I just wanted to tell the men on the show, give great information about the subject, and really appreciate them all. So thank you. We appreciate you guys attending, and, thank you. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
All right, Joe.
All right.
Peace.